Hello and welcome back to another Rush Duel Links video. Today we're going to take a look at the brand new structure deck just released into the game, the Ultimate Ace Breaker. So this is an unedited version of the deck. This is what you get when you purchase it. Now, notably, we do get one copy of this deck for free. So everything here you can just get. We can buy one with 500 gems, which investing gems is fine. I think 500 gems is an okay amount for what you get here, but if you do want that third copy to complete your playsets, you will need to buy one with real money. Now, you can get that at a reduced price, which is something, but you do have to spend at least a little bit of actual money if you want to complete this deck. So if we take a look at what we actually get in here, there is some quite interesting cards. The first one being Ultimate Flag Mech Ace Breaker. So Ace Breaker is going to be our boss monster. We'll talk about it a little bit more when we actually get into the deck profile, but this is our kind of main win con, our main boss monster of the deck, and our other big monster is the Ultimate Flag Mech Tough Striker, which is just a 2500 vanilla. We also get one copy of Cannon Rhino, which does give us a piercing option. We have Ultimate Flag Beast Aim Eagle, which we'll be able to use with our skill that we'll talk about in a little bit, but also it's just an okay card in general. The rest of the deck is a little bit lackluster. There's a lot of reprints in here, but there is the 1500 attack Avent Wolf, which is pretty good. And notably, there is also a 1400 attack Worker Warrior New Recruit. But unless we're specifically looking to have light machines in our deck, this card is obviously just a weaker version of Avent Wolf. Notably as well, we also have two copies of One Side Reverse. And this card is actually pretty interesting because one thing this deck does really lack is good ways to get to your opponent's life points. Obviously, Cannon Rhino is a piercer, but it's not a fantastic card because we have to tribute it out because it's a level 5 monster. Its attack is quite low, and then in order to actually get that piercing, we need a light attribute machine type monster from our hand to the graveyard. So it's quite a heavy investment to actually get this off. One Side Reverse, if your opponent has 2 or more face down monsters on the field, change one face down monster on your opponent's field to attack position. This is okay. This lets us get to our opponent's life points, and it does flip them up, which means we can pop them with Ace Breaker's effect. And then last but not least, there is 2 copies of the Barrier. This is just becoming a generically useful card, and is especially good with the machines because our boss monsters are 2500, which means your opponent needs to be 29 just to crash into us, and 3000 to attack over us, which is not super easy to do. The other very strange inclusions in here is 3 copies of Hydro Magician, which is just a straight up terrible card, and then another terrible card, Mask of Volos. I don't know why we're stuffing the deck with this actual crap. I mean, there's other mediocre cards in here, right? We have things like Strange Cat, but the really just straight up bad cards, Mask of Volos and Hydro Magician, are very strange. But now, let's go take a look at the build that we've made and we've been playing on ladder. So here it is. This is the version of the deck we have been playing. And the first thing we should probably do is take a look at our skill, Ultimate Bond. So this skill can only be used if the only monsters with 1400 or more attack in your deck are spellcasters or machines. So limiting us to spellcasters and machines is a little bit annoying, but it's only 1400 or more, which means we can only really use the beaters and the boss monsters. We can still use any of our useful low attack monsters. So that's kind of okay, but can be activated by revealing a machine type monster with 2500 attack or above from your hand to your opponent from the second turn onwards. The second turn onwards is fine, that's kind of whatever. 2500 attack or more basically limits this to being Ace Breaker or Tough Striker or the brand new legend monster released, Barrel Dragon. Then we can return one card from hand or field to deck and add one Ultimate Flag Beast Aim Eagle from your deck to your hand. Now, notably, we can put cards from our field back into our deck, which does come up and can be very, very useful. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But what does this skill effectively do? It gives us easy access to Aim Eagle. What does Aim Eagle do? If your opponent has a face-up level 7 or higher monster on their field, send 2 face-up light attribute monsters from your field to the graveyard. Special summon 1 machine-type monster from your hand face-up to your field. It gains 1000 attack. Now, the special summon is nice because it means that we can do it under Yami Ruler lock, which is always nice. It's always good to be able to have a way to play around Yami Ruler, and Ultimate Flag Beast Aim Eagle is our way to do that. The next notable thing is our opponent does have to have a level 7 or higher monster. This does come up quite a lot where your opponent only has level 6s or level 5s and you just cannot activate Aim Eagle's effect, but it's not that bad of a requirement because most of the time when we do want to be boosting that by that 1000, it will be to clear something very, very big. The next thing to mention is that we have to send 2 face-up light attribute monsters. This does not say machines, which means we can send something like Paku Pakuchu, who is a light monster. So we can summon Paku Pakuchu, use its effect, then summon out Aim Eagle, send both to the graveyard and bring out Ultimate Flag Mech Ace Breaker or the Ultimate Flag Mech Tough Striker. Now, notably, there is no Barrel Dragon in this deck, and the reason for that is that I am not spending my gems to buy a bundle that just gives me cards from a pack that I already have 3 copies of every card in, so I will not be getting the bundles until the release of the next booster set whenever that is, but I would probably include Barrel Dragon in here, and I would probably just replace one copy of Tough Striker, because I don't really think this deck wants to go up to 7 high-level monsters. So let's talk a little bit about our boss monster then. We have Ultimate Flag Mech Ace Breaker. We can send 2 monsters from our hand to the graveyard. Again, this has to be monsters, which is a little annoying, but that's kind of fine. We can destroy 1 face-up monster on your opponent's field. Destroying a face-up monster on our opponent's field is really, really good. Obviously, if we could destroy any monster face-up or face-down, that would be a lot better, because that would be a way to get to our opponent's life points, and we wouldn't have to rely on some sort of piercing or changing battle position effect. But this is what we've got, and it's still pretty good. Notably as well, we can use our Ultimate Bond to basically turn one of our spell cards, such as Raids of the Beasts, into an Ultimate Flag Beast Aim Eagle from our deck, which we can use then to fulfill the effect requirement of our Ultimate Flag Mech Ace Breaker, which does come up. The next thing that's pretty obvious in here is we're playing quite a robust Beast package, and that is because Paku Paku Chu is just a really, really good card in general. The Beast engine is very, very strong right now, and we just have had our new card release, Rage of the Beasts, which does work, again, very, very well with the Beast engine. So this is a pretty good spell card, but it unfortunately does have a typo on it. It says if you have 2 or more face-up Warrior type and or Beast Warrior type monsters on the field, this should be Beasts and Beast Warrior types, destroy 1 spell trap on your opponent's field, then you can shuffle 1 field spell from your graveyard into the deck. So the field spell effect is irrelevant. But if we do get 2 beasts onto the field, we can just go ahead and pop one of our opponent's back row, which is basically like having a Hammer Crush that doesn't cost us a card from our hand, or a Ghost Cyclone that doesn't require us to have an empty board. Although Ghost Cyclone does work quite well in this deck, because what we can do is use our skill, if we only have 1 monster on the board, to put it back into our deck, grab out an Aim Eagle from the deck, and then have an empty field, activate Ghost Cyclone, and pop our opponent's stuff, so that will work just as well. But Paku Paku Chu, very, very powerful. Again, it's a light monster, which does combo quite well with Aim Eagle. We can also summon out a Paku Paku Chu, use our Ultimate Bond skill, put Paku Paku Chu back into our deck, search out an Aim Eagle. Then if we have another Paku Paku Chu, our board is now empty, so we can summon that one out, then use its effect, and basically go double Paku Paku Chu in a single turn, which is very, very strong, and should not be underestimated. That is one of the kind of main little combos of the deck, and it does come up quite often. As for the rest of the Beast package, All-Seeing White Tiger and Silver Fang are our options, because we are not allowed to play monsters that have 1400 or more attack that are not machines or spellcasters, so we cannot play Gazelle. And then obviously Silver Wolf is just a really good card. 1300 attack is decent, and the ability to weaken our opponent's monsters is very relevant, and notably it does also reduce defense, which does come up against Yami Ruler, and now that Shield and Sword and Shield are cards, that also can come up rarely, but it does. The last monster in the deck is Ultimate Flag Beast Aven Wolf. This is in here just because it is a light monster that we can send using our Ultimate Flag Beast Aim Eagle to summon out our big bosses. So for the rest of the cards, we have Monster Reincarnation. Again, Monster Reincarnation is still very, very strong. We can use it to get back our boss monsters. We can use it to get back Paku Paku Chu, which is very, very strong. In some situations, we'll take back Aim Eagle. So just a very generally versatile card. We have the Widespread Ruin, because it's the best card in the game. And then finally, we have the Barrier. Now, the Barrier is very, very important in this deck, and that is because we have 2500 attack monsters. That means our opponent needs to be attacking with 3000 or higher in order to not at least trade into us when we use the Barrier. That means only cards like Ancient Arise, Noodle Ninjas if they're fully buffed up, a fully buffed up 7's Robe Magician, only cards like these will be able to get through at us. If you're playing against something like Dragonic Resonance, or Dragius, or any other 2500 attack monsters, they all get completely blown out by the Barrier, especially if your opponent is playing something like Thunder the Thunder to weaken your monsters. We can then use the Barrier to just wipe our opponent's monster out, which is really, really strong. On top of the fact, the Barrier is really good at putting cards back into our deck. Obviously, putting Paku Paku Chu back into our deck is going to be really good, but more notably, we can put Ultimate Flag Beast Aim Eagle back into our deck, and then we can use Ultimate Bond again. And Ultimate Bond is actually a very, very good skill. As long as we have one of these 2500 attack machine monsters, we can basically fix our hand. So in one of the games that we played today, we did open 3 of our high level monsters, but we were able to use our Ultimate Bond to put one of the high level monsters back into our deck and to grab out an Aim Eagle, thus making the deck a lot more consistent, being able to unbrick our completely unplayable hand and actually have a chance. And we did actually end up winning that game. So this skill, very, very strong, and lots of very interesting ways you can use it to unbrick your hand, to make a power play just to be able to get a 3500 attack monster out, which can be very, very strong, or just to make room on the board to be able to reuse Paku Paku Chu. There's just a lot of moving pieces in this deck, and it all comes together quite nicely. So, what about this deck overall? I would say this deck is pretty strong. It's not anything super crazy. I don't think this deck is suddenly going to be topping every single tournament event. I don't think this is going to suddenly be a tier 0 meta threat, but I think the deck can hold its own, and it is a pretty good free-to-play option. Obviously, if you only have 2 copies of this deck, you won't be able to have this exact build, but we could quite easily take out one of the ace breakers and include something like a Tawna. We can maybe play Sevens or a Magician if we just need more bigger monsters and we do not have access to 3 copies of each of our boss monsters. There are lots of things we can do with this deck, even if we don't have 3 copies. Obviously, 3 copies is what's going to make this just feel the most consistent. Being able to pop monsters can be very relevant, and it's very good that we can do that. Being able to go up to 35, again, is very relevant because a lot of people are playing the barrier, and this is now another way to attack over the barrier using Aim Eagle. We can also use Aim Eagle to boost up our ultimate flag mech Tough Striker if we want to try and protect our Ace Breaker to play around Widespread. Therefore, Widespread would hit our 3500 attack Tough Striker instead of our 2500 attack Ace Breaker. So that is another little thing we can do, which is quite nice. But the deck does have a few weaknesses. Now, this build of the deck has a very robust beast engine. We have just a ton of beasts in here, and that is to facilitate Rage of the Beasts, as well as just having Paku Paku Chu be able to be used alongside Aim Eagle. But we could also slim down that package and potentially take out our Rage of the Beasts in order to fit in a small Aqua package as well, because just having more ways to add more monsters to your hand is always going to be really, really good. And because this deck does specifically need to discard monsters for Ace Breaker, we're going to need lots of monsters constantly to be able to summon them out, tribute them out the way to get Ace Breaker out, as well as discard them for the effect. So we could slim down the number of spell traps we're on in general. But for this build of the deck, this is what we've gone with, and this has been working out really well for us. We actually did manage to get 5 in a row and King of Games with this deck. So it definitely has legs, and it definitely can take games off of any deck. The question is, how often will it be able to do that? How consistently will it be able to do that? And I think my first impression is this is actually not that bad. I think this could potentially be a tier 2 deck, but we're going to have to, again, test it, see tournament results before we actually know for sure. One other thing is we did test a little bit with Ultimate Flag Beast Cannon Rhino, but its cost is just a little bit too steep, in my opinion. But having to tribute this out and then send a light attribute machine type monster from your hand to the graveyard, it's too much. If it was just tribute it out and then just give a monster piercing the turn it was summoned, that would be fine. But I think it's too much. This card is just not good enough, unfortunately, which does leave us without a good way to get to our opponent's life points. Because if our opponent just does triple set, we don't really have a way to get at them. We just have to keep ramming into them. Now, we could again include something like the Pierce spell, but I don't really like that card very much, especially since our spell traps are already quite tight as it is. The other thing we could do is include Tawna, but then that does mean dropping an Ace Breaker, which also does kind of suck. So just know going in that this deck does not cover all of the bases that a top tier deck kind of has to have in order to outperform decks consistently, but it's still pretty good and it's very fun. But now, let's fire on some replays so I can show you what I've been talking about.
ラッシュデュエル。
くよ、ラッシュデュエル。
ラッシュデュエル